All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to our Williamsport City Council meeting. It's Thursday, May 26, 2022. We're in Trading Transit 2. Please rise for the invocation and the flag salute.
Lord, we are here tonight amidst national challenges and mourning. Move our hearts with the peace of your spirit as we care for ourselves and each other. Lift our minds with your wisdom to act responsibly and effectively for everyone's benefit. Bring us together in your spirit to work as one in protecting and supporting each other from the troubles that have ailed our nation and our communities. Strengthen our faith as we carry on our daily lives in these difficult circumstances. Bless us, we pray, and hold us close to your loving kindness now and forever. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item 3, approval of city council meeting minutes dated May 12, 2022. Is there a motion and a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes? Hearing and seeing none, Mr. Lubin, if you would take the vote, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Felicity,
Yes.
Mr. Whiter,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm going to call you Mrs. Frank.
I'm playing Mrs. Yoder.
Touche, my friend, touche. Item 4, limited courtesy of the floor. We've had no requests tonight. Item 5, appointment of Kevin Mackey to the city treasurer's position. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. And I'll kick this off here. So as a lot of everybody knows, and I think the public knows, so we had a resignation in the treasurer's office. Mr. Nick Grimes took employment out of the city and opened a post. And we've gone through a public process to fill that per the law and for the third-class optional charter. We had 3 applicants originally. One withdrew before interviews. He interviewed 2 publicly. We did that, I think, about 4 weeks ago, if I roughly recall. Again, that was public. It's up on YouTube. The following meeting, we made an initial appointment of Ms. Shauna Arroyo, and after the appointment, she unfortunately decided to withdraw her name. And so we revisited Mr. Mackey's candidacy following a very strong interview, and he was still interested and willing to move forward through the process to appointment, and that is why we are here now. I'll open up the floor for any questions or comments from other members of council before we continue through. I'll say this, you know, Mr. Mackey is of no relation to our councilman, John Mackey. I'll add that as well. Represented himself very, very well in the interview, and I think I can speak for all of us when I think we were, as individually going through this as who we wanted to appoint. I don't think we could have made a bad mistake one way or the other. And I think I struggled with, you know, which way I initially wanted to go, and you know, I think things happen for a reason. I think we're going to be very well served with Mr. Mackey in the treasurer's office, and I can say I, for one, am looking forward to working with him in that capacity over the next year and a half. And when he does a good job, I'm hoping he runs again, and we'll continue to build upon what our outgoing treasurer did. So I can say I'm excited to support this and excited to appoint him. So. All right. We have a motion and a second. No other discussion. Mr. Lubin on the vote to appoint Kevin Mackey as our city treasurer.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Felicity,
Yes.
Mr. Whiter,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Kevin, I think we talked about you starting June 13th.
Yes, it'll be the Monday after June 10th.
Excellent. If is there any comments you'd like to make to the public or the council? You don't have to. I just wanted to offer that to you if you wish.
I'll wait till I get to the position to actually do that.
That sounds good. Well, we're all excited to work with you. Offer our congratulations, and I'll be here to help you through any of the initial learning curves associated with working with council. But we each up here offer a little bit of a different perspective, and each will be valuable to get to know. And I think we're all here to help you. So don't be afraid to call, email, whatever that is. So congratulations.
Thank you, and I appreciate any guidance you guys give.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to bounce around at this point here a little bit. We're going to move to item 13, demolition of 723 Sheridan Street with Brian and Kate Coffey. If I mispronounce that, I apologize. I'm terrible with name pronunciation. So, is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. George is joining us via Zoom tonight. How are you this evening, sir?
Thank you very much, Mr. Yoder. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I appreciate you letting me do this by Zoom. What you have before you is a request from Mr. and Mrs. Coffey for the structure located at 723 Sheridan Street, which is located in an R2 zoning district. The structure was used as a single-family dwelling and is currently vacant. On December 6th of 2021, the property was placed on the blighted list. Come 12/06/2022, it would be brought in front of the board. Mr. Coffey owns the property next door. He wishes to purchase it, consolidate the two lots, tear the structure down, and build a detached structure on his overall parcel of ground. And Mr. Coffey is here, and if you have any questions of him or myself, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Coffey's on Zoom, I believe, as well. Okay. Are there any comments or questions from members of council on the demolition? Okay. Here you see none. Mr. Lubin, when we vote please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Lizzie,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy. Yes. Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. We'll go to item 14, certificate.
Thank you.
And you're welcome,
Thank you.
Mr. Coffey, and thank you for moving forward with this property. We're thankful and appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Item 14, certificate of appropriateness, 128 East 3rd Street, Carl and Pamela Kraus. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. I'll turn it over to you again, Mr. Girardi.
Yes, for your approval is a certificate of appropriate request for the structure located at 138 East 3rd Street. What they wish to do is the two parapet walls that are there now, the tiebacks and everything are falling off. So what's happening is it's leaning out. It's probably 16, from my understanding, talking with the architect, about 16 inches out of square. They wish to remove that and provide a roof similar to what the drawing is you have attached. Along with that, they're going to put on some brick paneling. Their intent is to paint the building, the entire building. The colors of the entire building is they're going to paint the building itself, the main body, a red brick color, very similar to the brick that's around the area. The window trim would be a color, would be a green. The accents would be a a beige and a brown trim accent. Okay. We do have a representative, I believe, at the meeting, the architect and also the owner, Mr. Kraus. I'll be more than happy to answer any of these questions if you have or of them. At one time, if you remember, this property and the building next door, there was a demolition request that came in and it was approved by council to tear these two structures down. Since that time, Mr. Kraus has purchased the building. He wishes to keep them, keeping them there and painting them to bring them into compliance. So again, if you have any questions of him or myself, I'm more than happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Girardi. Yes, the Krauses and the architect are here in the back if anybody has any questions. So are there any comments or questions from any members of council on this certificate of appropriateness? Ms. Mealy.
The only question I have, and it's irrelevant, but it appears that this item went before HAR because the property does not fall in the historic district. That was just a notification of sorts. Mr. Girardi?
Again, I didn't hear you, Ms. Mealy. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I said it appears that this item went before the Historic Architectural Review Board, even though it's not in the historic district.
That is correct. You are correct. What happens is if we basically, the city of Williamsport has a whole entire overlay of the whole entire city. Anything that's a historic building is not required, but it is requested to go in front of the Historic Review Board for them to look at it and make any opinions. And the only thing I think they made a change was instead of having the roof come out over the edge, they wanted it to be more of a cornice look, so it's tight up against the building. But Mr. Kraus and the architect did go in front of the Historic Architectural Review Board, and they did pass this with a positive recommendation, even though they are not required to.
Excellent. Well, I guess I just want to say how wonderful, frankly, it is in the process. You use the Historic Architectural Review Board as a resource in that fashion. They're very talented people who were fortunate in this. And I don't know in my recollection of ever seen anyone else do that. It's really a great idea just in terms of trying to maintain the historicity of your structure. But that's everything. It looks like a good project, and we certainly appreciate you taking such good care of it. Thanks.
Absolutely. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Blizzy?
I just want to say thank you very much. It's not meant for everybody. It takes a special kind of initiative and ambition to take on a project like that. It would have been much easier just to allow buildings to be demolished, but drive determination to preserve what's Williamsport to take on a project like that. So thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Allison?
I agree. All the good things that you said.
I agree also. Well said, Mr. Allison. Any other comments or questions? I'm hearing, seeing none, Ms. Tara. I told you more. I caught myself, but I was going to do it. I knew it. Mr. Lubin, on the motion, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Lindsay,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Neely,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes. Motion passes 6-0. We'll move back up to item 7.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yoder.
Thank you, Mr. Drury. I hope you feel better.
Yep, thank you.
We'll move back up to item 7, resolution to commit funding for the Greenways Trails and Recreation Program, or Gtrp, for Basin Street Riverwalk Connector. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Mr. Sander, good evening, sir. I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Yeah, this is a grant opportunity for Riverwalk Connect to support. Riverwalk connection, Basin Street will change. Currently, we have it's two phases, I would say. We have a design and a permit from basically Merritt Red to underneath the underpass. And from that point, we'll talk about tonight, from that point to the Riverwalk itself, that connection. I'm working with Delta to wrap this grant. Essentially from that point, we hopefully cross from University on-ramp to the elevation of railroad tracks, from there to the walk itself. Cost-wise, the grant is for $96,900 with a match, city match of $17,100. This was discussed in Public Works and give a positive recommendation. I know there's strong support from the city, the county, and the college. That's been for quite some time. Myself and Delta, Teresa from Delta spoke to the railroad today, and they were supportive, allowing that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sander. Mr. Allison, if you would speak to
Yes.
public works.
We did discuss public works. It has been a long-standing desired improvement to the Riverwalk and to give greater access, better access, safer access to people who want to take advantage of the Riverwalk. So it's been a long time coming, but we're grateful that it's in the process. Mr. Byer, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I think it's fantastic. as an individual that would park my car there, and walk up over the railroad tracks myself personally. The question that I would be concerned about is not being in the public works meeting, but how are we going to ensure safety of pedestrians as they cross those railroad tracks?
Sure.
Up and over, is there going to be a stop sign there, like put on the roadway?
Sure, it'll be up and over. There's currently 5 or 6 at-grade crossings along the roads in the city, just outside the outskirts of the city along this exact road. So it'll be an at-grade crossing with signals. So it's not a very heavily used road itself. But yes, we spoke to the city call today. And they would be nice for, like, paying for that. Also spoke to the Army Corps about tying into the dry side of the levee. There's just a permit process I have to go through. But it's not an issue.
Okay, and I apologize, Mr. Dwyer. I meant to go to Mr. Movie. I was staring down there. So you did well.
He does. No, thank you, Mr. House. No, I completely agree. This is something that's been a long time coming. A lot of us do like to the Riverwalk, so safety and access for everybody to enjoy. Definitely something. Thank you.
I forgot to ask in the meeting, Mr. Schneider, which the match.
I knew that was coming. Not an answer, but I'll tell them don't crucify me by saying, oh, look, there's a legitimate possibility given this is recreation. So it's possible.
Yeah. It's definitely a fit. Yeah.
You had a question?
Yeah, just, so looking at the cost estimate from Larson, I guess what I'm wondering, you said that we might want to paying for the at-grade crossing, and then obviously will also be tied in the levy there, the area expense. Those costs are not included, doesn't appear.
The crossing is just in the cost estimate is asphalt. I don't know what it'll be yet.
You're not, I'm assuming you have to have arms.
Sure. Not always need to have alarms sometimes. Require alarms, sometimes they require just flashing beacons. That's a case by case basis. Yeah.
Got it. What do you rate that, those items are, yes, whatever.
That is correct.
And the time in terms of the rest of the costs, including scaling the levy, the access to the levy, or the cost estimate.
The rest is included. Yes.
So we're potentially looking at 25 cost for the project.
That's very realistic possibility.
I'm just trying to figure out if there are items that are included in the cost estimate, what are additional exposures, because it would be realistic about cost estimate, we should also be realistic about the fact that can't very well construct an access to the walk without doing, crossing. Like once we, if we receive the grant and we committed the match, we will also be committed whatever additional funding is required to finish the project. So, so we don't expect it to be dramatically more than that 114 to 125.
Correct. I did see a rendition of this 8 years back that was in the millions range. It's
Yeah.
actually a double concrete retaining wall option. This is significantly cheaper.
Okay. All right. So, but we do expect this to cover the cost. We're not going to wind up somewhere in the $300,000 to $400,000 range, and all of a sudden we can't finish the project with the grant funding we received.
If that's the case, I'll have additional grant money.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to, because what happens to us often, of course, is that we don't, twofold thing. We receive a grant that is not quite enough to complete the project. We don't have the funding. We wait, then we need more funding because the cost of everything goes up. So I'm just trying to walk down the grass. And then we're not going to want that wishing we try to walk it a little bit more. Would that realistically be an option with GTRP, or is that our max?
It is not the max. I thought, my person, I thought it was, I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was a little light on the estimate itself. But I did look at the figures for the quantities and they were reasonable. So, but it is in fact dirt, fill, gravel, and asphalt. That is cost effective as a process you can get.
And we have to base the grant application on a stamp process with you license, so we can't ask them for 150. Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Based on this passes tonight, this goes into the application to do it.
I know, I'm just saying, we have a cost estimate, we have whatever, but it's not as if we can ask them for additional funds or we're going to look at the estimated cost of the project. Because that would be an easy thing to change in the grant application, whereas the cost estimate, not so much.
That is actually a possibility that we've actually done that before. That we look at the cost estimate of that. And here's the staff for a number of years, so that is a possibility.
So we could go back to the ask for additional funds for this project. All right. Yes.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Lubin, on the vote, sir.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Ms. Neely,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes. Motion passes 6-0. We'll move to item 8, resolution awarding final design services to Gannett Fleming for the Brandon Park band shell. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Turn to you, sir, Mr. Sander.
Yes, good evening again. I believe Mike Snyder, Vice President again, is on the Zoom call, if I'm not mistaken. Are you there, Mike?
Yes, I'm here.
How you doing, Mike?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. So what you have before you here this evening is the final design for the band shell project. This project has been, I think, in Gannett's hands since 2018, 2019. Is that correct, Mike?
Something like that. Yes, in some capacity from early design or early feasibility study review and report.
Early on, Mike's crew at Gannett did a feasibility study. Then a year or so ago, the council awarded preliminary design services for approximately 29,000. I think 25,000 was expended. And here we are this evening, hoping to get final design. This is for $41,000. This was discussed in finance with no recommendation. No backstory here. We have $280,000 set aside for construction. That includes some CDBG funding, some county funding, and the FCFD Foundation funding as well. I went after a county grant, recreation based, to try to cover this cost. I was not awarded it. So I asked the foundation to pull some money from construction ahead to design. They said yes. So that's why I'm here this evening. What we were also looking to do was to put a vertical wheelchair lift inside the band shell. Myself and Mike Snyder and his project managers at Gannett were looking at possibly doing a ramp. However, when you look at the elevation of the stage and the run out, the ramp would be very long and would be quite costly. It's actually more cost effective to do a vertical wheelchair. So we're looking at that instead. In addition to that, lift would be inside, so it would be protected from vandalism and elements and whatnot. So, some of the council individuals that asked for some plans from Gannett, and I submitted those to you guys right after Tuesday's finance meeting. So, any questions on that?
Thanks, John. This was a review of finance, was you?
This was reviewed in finance and as Mr. Sanders said, board with the recommendation. That wasn't predicated on the fact that the finance committee, any of the finance committee doesn't think we should finish the band shell. Questions that we had during the finance committee meeting that Mr. Sanders said would ask them to get in case they were present. And I will ask that if we participate in the retelling of this so that we excited. We had, I think, the very first question was Mr. Allison's question. Mr. Snyder, under revised services, there's a paragraph that says general.
Yes.
We're going to see what that means. The structural hours were written missed for inclusion in our initial fee proposal and contract. It doesn't mean we're proposing to remove electrical and mechanical scope from the project and transfer effort from those disciplines to the structural effort. We were confused because there are the scope includes structural, architectural, electrical, and mechanical elements, and weren't sure then if the cost proposal included electrical or mechanical or not, based on that paragraph.
Yeah, so the proposal for the final design includes plumbing design for the restrooms in the basement. It includes a mechanical study on humidification control of the building. It involves the electrical design or final design to bring the building up to code. And then it also includes the architectural design for the restrooms, for the exterior improvements and that sort of thing. So it's all inclusive for architectural, mechanical, and electrical. The structural design we already have, we're already under contract essentially for that. We have some remaining funds in our design to take the structural design to final, exclusive of the wheelchair lift, depending on what you guys want to do there.
Okay. And I'm a little, I've heard a couple of things about the wheelchair lift. Mr. Sander mentioned on Tuesday that it was not a requirement for us to construct a wheelchair lift at the band shell. Is that the case, or is that not the case?
It's not a requirement to do it inside the building. We had talked about doing an exterior option to allow people with disabilities to access the stage area and the stage level. So the options at the time were either do interior or exterior, and the thought at the time was that an exterior lift would, while it would be probably more cost effective, it would be open to weather and also vandalization.
Got it. So we decided on the interior.
That's the decision at the time was to look at an interior option, and the price that we had included in there, which was the $12,600, was to design an interior chairlift from the basement to the upper stage level.
Got it. And one other question about that. I'm not looking, I will not hold you to this number, but your estimate of the cost of to actually construct the chairlift interior?
I'm sorry, the audio is very poor.
I'm sorry. I forget that I'm leaning away from the microphone. I said, do you have a very, very, very approximate estimate of the cost to construct that chairlift after the
we were not tasked to bring together a opinion of cost or opinion of budget for that piece of it. But that's something that we could take a look at, certainly, if that's if you need more information to evaluate that.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is just, have you designed something similar elsewhere in the community?
No, we have not. Not for this application. Usually inside a building, we're looking at using an elevator. This is not, I'll say, normal installation, just because it's such an old building, and we're trying to keep costs down in some way by trying to use an approved way of providing the access, but not the kind of the full elevator, which would cost a lot more.
Yeah, well, yeah, elevators are pricey.
Right.
Okay, just trying to get some sort of, I think Mr. Sanders said he was thinking maybe in the $15,000 range for construction.
That was a private install number.
No, I guess what I'm trying to tell is whether it's likely to be closer to 20,000 or closer to 100,000. I'm not trying to say, is it?
Yeah, I can't answer that at this time. I haven't done that analysis.
Mike, that would be, if awarded, that would be the design out front design.
I'm sorry, John, say that again.
If this was awarded tonight, that obviously would be part of the cost estimate and final design process, right?
Yeah, we could provide that upon request.
Okay, so the cost we're providing us with cost estimates is part of this contract, right? The scope of the contract that we're.
Yes, I'm not sure if that was included, but we can certainly take a look at that. I don't think that would be a large effort to pull something like that together. We could probably just do that in the under our current contract, if that's something you're interested in determining.
Well, I think we're just trying to figure out, trying to understand the scope of work and if we can, given that we have a very limited amount of funding for the project, if we have to decide to exclude certain options, clearly having a cost estimate on the various and sundry work proposed is going to be very helpful. So I would say that we can all defer to members of council. That seems like something that we might want, is cost estimates.
Yeah, to chime in on that, I would like the cost estimates also. I think we need to get this accessible. I think to do that, we need to understand what we're up against so we can plan accordingly. That's what it comes down to for me. So the cost estimate is very, very helpful. If you can do that as a part of this contract, that would be amazing. And then that'll enable us to either move a few things around so we can accomplish it with what we have, or go out and find other funding mechanisms so that we can achieve that. I mean, we've had plenty of conversations over the past couple of years between all of us. I mean, I think we all want to work towards making our city as accessible for everybody as we can, and we need to know what that costs so we can plan accordingly. So I would agree, we need to understand what that looks like.
And obviously, Mr. Snyder, I would assume there'd be a lot less maintenance on the interior lift. As well as not having to worry about vandalism, but maintenance, inspection costs and things like that are the same, correct? But maintenance factor, I would assume, would decrease substantially on something that's interior.
But yeah, I would say that's accurate.
Okay. Got it. So I guess what we're discussing is that, to my point, I was thinking the cost estimates might be helpful, not just on the wheelchair lift, but also on all of the items, because I know that we were thinking humidity control might be something that we would do without depleting. Correct, John? So it seems like cost estimates are desirable on all elements of the project. This scope does not include any kind of bidding and or construction management elements of the project. Correct?
Let me ask Mike. So Mike, for final design, this was obviously the contract for final design. This would include final design, final plans, final specifications, and bidding of the project, right, Mike? Mr. Snyder?
Yeah, it was for final design. Construction services are not included.
Yeah, not construction, but when you get to final design, when you have final plans, final specification quantities, we will have a good idea of the cost estimate for the owner's use, correct?
Again, that's something that I don't believe that was specifically part of our scope, but we can certainly provide that.
And it sounds as though the bidding process is not included in the scope.
That's correct.
Understood. I'll yield up to finance. Those are the questions that I remember from finance, but if anyone else is challenging.
Mr. Allison.
Not really a question, but an observation that we talked about. This project and the funding for it were preliminarily accounted for years ago now. We know how much construction costs have gone up. I'm very concerned about what we're going to be able to do with the amount of money that was originally allocated to this, which was, I think it's 240, no, 280. We're putting a roof on as part of the project. We all know what roofing costs have gone through the roof and beyond. Easy pickings there, but it's true. It's a reality that whether it's 2 grand funding or whatever vehicle, I think we need to get, we don't need final numbers, but we definitely need some accurate estimates about each particular component in this project, we're really going to be blind, making a decision, blind concerning how everything fits together. It's just my perspective right now. We don't have that. We have different items that were agreed upon in the beginning of this project, but the shelf life has expired, so we really need to nail down some of that before very much.
Agreed. Mr. Meyer, anything to add?
The only thing I'd like to add, this is obviously something that, as Councilman Allison said, has been going on for years. This is not something that I want to see drag on. I'd like us to see some work done on this man shelf, so it doesn't end up like, unfortunately, our city hall, where we're in a situation where we can't. And I think that barring the cost estimates, it's a great project, and I'm inclined to. Do we have a second reading for this? We would not. So at this point, I'm inclined to say that we would have to have those cost estimates to truly make a sound decision.
Ms. Mueller?
Yeah, but my secondary concern, I guess, is if we take this funding from that 289, that this is 239. Then what I'm hearing from Mr. Snyder is that at that point, we still don't have someone to bid out the project or manage the construction. I would assume, I would hope that we would perhaps RFP that portion of the project. Because it's really done a lot of work, a lot of very good work at the shelf, but at some point it seems like we should probably engage in the RFP process as part of this. But do we have any idea what those services are likely to cost? Because those are still just soft costs, not associated with construction.
What services?
The bidding and the construction management.
I don't know off the top of my head. Architecture for engineering. Bidding it and talk what? $5 grand, Snyder, maybe? Possibly.
A general rule that we have seen is, 75, 25, 75% for design, 25% for construction services.
So you're lumping bidding and construction inspection together.
Yes.
So are we then as counting as that we've expended we will have expended thus far 65 on design?
75% of the total cost.
I understand that, but I'm saying what we're saying is 75% of the total construction management / engineering costs are design and 25% are construction management. Our total engineering cost then as a community, the 40,000 that we're engaging for final design, or the 65,000 that we're.
I guess if I'm understanding the question correctly, what we're requesting at this time is go ahead for final design, which is part of that initial 75%, and then
Right.
Exclusive of that is the 25% of construction. So if you're just looking to get an idea of the general construction administration costs, then you could apply what we have under contract so far and what we're requesting now as the 75%, and then just do a calculation to take 25% for the remainder.
Yeah. So,
But that's just a loose estimate.
Or something like that. I understand that's a ballpark, spitball figure. Just asking. Okay, which leaves us then with 217 for construction. If we want to lower that number. Okay. Just putting that up because the pie is getting smaller and smaller, and we have not actually done any work on the bench. So I'm not sure. I think, Mr. Snyder, that perhaps the best way to phrase it is that while it seems as though we are committed to the wheelchair lift as well as the van shell project. We are looking to minimize costs as much as humanly possible on every single one of these items, and anything that is not, strictly speaking, required should be labeled as such. Anything that doesn't mean the building is going to fall apart into pieces or have random leaks in the roof probably should be labeled as not a necessary component so that we can pull it.
Yeah, essentially, we looked at repairing the building so that it doesn't continue to deteriorate as an essential piece. Replacing the roof was another essential piece, and then providing ADA access to restrooms on the ground or basement level, as well as access to the upper stage level. So those were our primary items that we were looking at as quote unquote required items to get this to a basic level of compliance.
So then the humidity control, for instance.
That is not necessarily required. That was I believe that was a request. And if that's not desired, then we can pull that out of the proposal.
Sorry, I'll step out of the discussion there. I don't know if we want the numbers for humidity control, but I don't think we're gonna have to wait to deal with it. So that it's, is there a reason why the administration is looking for those numbers for humidity control?
That was actually suggested to me from Ken. I wanted to.
I agree with you. Great. I'm not.
I guess I wouldn't have known what I wanted to fix yet until I saw a cost estimate, which I assume was part of the design process.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess depending, I think it would be my suggestion that we ask Anna to provide us with a cost estimate for just the humidity control scope, because it sounds to me that it's pretty clear to me that we're not going to have funding to deal with that, so we should probably fill that. So the rest of that. Unless I'm very disagreeable with the administration.
Why was that recommended to look at? You said Gannett Fleming recommended that?
Yeah, I believe there's, Mike, if I'm not mistaken, there's mold, I don't know if it's mold, but some mold and some humid conditions down in the basement. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, I think throughout the building we were looking at humid conditions, so we're just looking at trying to mitigate those conditions and try to elongate some of the installations that are in place now and the ones that we'd be putting in place as well.
Gotcha, thanks for the clarification. Mr. Mackey, you got your hand up?
Yes, and forgive my ignorance here, but this is not my forte, construction design. Just getting the numbers on the humidity control, will that cost us more money to just get an estimate on how much humidity control will cost? Is that, how am I understanding that correctly? I mean, why not get the numbers on humidity control and then say yes or no? We can afford it.
Like we're looking at ventilation and fan system, correct? For humidity as basically a base, and then possibly other measures, other more robust measures if necessary. Is that correct?
I don't know exactly what we're looking at because that's something we haven't gotten into yet. That's actually a study of that is what part of the proposal that we provided. So that would provide that information as well as a cost estimate on that system as well. So yes, that would be part of it.
So I think if I understand what this meeting was getting at, I think the goal was to look at it, but make sure that it's a broken out cost so we understand standalone what that looks like.
Yes.
If it's gonna, I mean, I don't know that it's gonna save us money by pulling that out of this contract and then not doing it. I think that's a separate thing. So, I mean,
I think it will save us money. The question is, do we want, even if we can't afford it for the project, do we want to have some basic idea of how to manage it so that we can.
So I guess aside from, people using it, is there anything super critical of the value that we need to have humidity control in here. I mean, I am like, people are going to be wrong, but I mean, if you're just using it for events,
Temporary.
I think we can sustain high humid temperatures, but if there's something we're storing there that's very, very valuable, that might change the game. Like, what are we planning to store in there? Anything like that? Do we have any idea?
I don't, it's not, I mean, it's used for some storage, but nothing, it's not like long-term storage, and no one's overstaying or there, obviously, it's just
Yeah.
short term.
And then for Ms. Mealy, to your point, you know, if we're looking at putting a wheelchair lift in there, what impacts are we gonna have with high humidity on that? Is that gonna shorten the life cycle potentially?
You'd think so, yeah.
Okay.
You'd think so.
I mean, and to Mike Snyder, if we would pull out that scope of work with humidity control, what would that save us on this contract?
Let me see if I can take a quick look at that.
Depending on what it is, if we are serious about putting in a wheelchair lift in there.
Sorry, 1 second here.
Actually, not included in the scope. Gotcha. So I guess let me ask you-
About, I would say about $1,000.
So,
Read that this time.
yeah, so it reads, it reads at this time, there is no humidity control scope included in this. So, I mean, and if there was, it would save us $1,000. I'd be spending $1,000 to understand what that would cost to extend the life cycle of what that investment would be in a wheelchair lift would be worth it. So, yeah, so Mike, one way or the other, would you please look at humidity control for within this contract for this price?
It sounds to me like the proposal was basically to examine whether it's possible to provide some protection.
Mike, can you include a cost estimate by chance as well? I mean, I know we're asking a little bit of you here, but we're.
I believe as part of that, just looking through the analysis of the proposal here. It's not specific, but that's something we could look at and
Okay.
include.
All right, I think it'd be valuable to do so. We may not do it, but it's good enough. Okay. Mr. Mackey, another question.
No.
Does it answer your first one?
Yes, no, again, I think it's important to have, at least have numbers to make the best decision possible. And I would be remiss if I just didn't remind everyone that I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but to the best of my recollection, we still have somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.5 million in unassigned ARPA money in the recreation budget. So this would clearly fall under that scope of work, right? So, you know, if we're talking about going over by $100,000 or $200,000, we do have funding to cover that in ARPA.
Mr. Mackey. Oh, Mr. Allison.
One more question on the lift. There's no, conceptually, it's inside the building, but it would be an opening.
Yeah, so I think probably, I'm not gonna, I don't wanna speak for Mike, but I think the design cost of the roughly 12 grand would be studying and modifying the structural integrity of the floor system to make sure it could support and physically fit the vertical wheelchair lift inside. Not mistaken. Is that right, Mike? Not
Yeah.
only support it, but also modify it if necessary.
Yep, that would be included in that design fee.
There'll be a hole in the floor.
Correct, backstage.
So it's I mean, that's not an airtight building, so I don't know if I'm not conceptualizing how effective. But it's not.
Good point, Mr. Allison.
Later time.
Very good point. Any other comments or questions from any other members of council on this item? Mr. Pelisi?
Thank you. I certainly appreciate all the discussion that we've had going over this. To me, it sounds like there's still quite a few questions that we have, and there's still quite a bit of discussion that we should have. I wonder if it might be the best for us to table this item until we have a lot more level of comfort moving forward with some of these questions that we're trying to get.
Other members of council feel that you're welcome to make that motion if you want to do that.
I would make a motion that we table this until we receive further information.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Motion is second to table. Is there any other discussion on this motion? Ms. Mealy?
Just so that I know what the course of action is that we take this item now, or to publish before the next 2 weeks, and then make us more comfortable.
It sounds like we still have quite a few questions for Mr. Snyder and Fleming regarding the scope of work that is going to be provided. The conceptual design layout, to Mr. Allison's point, bringing the fact that we're going to have a lift. If we talk about putting in humidity control downstairs in more of a sealed contained environment, but then if it has access to open air environment of that stage level, it feels like there's still a lot of questions out there that I think that Mr. Sander might buy you a little bit more time to work out some of these wrinkles with Mr. Snyder.
I would agree.
I'm not getting warm fuzzy feelings, so to speak, for moving forward with this.
Just some more questions to answer for this discussion too.
Yes, sir, I agree.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Lubin on the motion to table, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes,
Mr. Garrett.
Yes, motion to table passes 6-0. John, thank you. And Mike, thank you as well. We will move
Thank
to
you.
item 9, resolution authorizing the city of Williamsport to award purchase of traffic control safety trailer. Is there a motion and a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Livermore is under the weather as well and is joining us via Zoom. Good evening, Mr. Livermore. Can you hear us?
Hi, good evening, members of council. What you have before you today is a resolution authorizing the city of Williamsport to award the purchase of a traffic control trailer using public safety ARPA funds. By purchasing this traffic control trailer will bring us up to code regulations for PennDOT use when we're out on the highway for our city events. Going back, we did have a trailer and cones barricade combo set up. That price inflated to about $26,000. So we circled back to try to cut costs and found a trailer to purchase. And then we went to another vendor to get our barricades and traffic cones. So the trailer was $4,735 and the traffic cones and barricades was $13,020. By purchasing the trailer, we're going to save around the way we're going to run it. We'll save around $6,000-7,000. We'll do not exceed 19,000 with the fluctuation of things after, once we get approved, then we can go ahead and move forward to this. This was reviewed by our solicitor, Austin White, and reviewed by Claire Collins, our UHY advisor for ARPA funds, and was approved through them. This went through Public Works on Tuesday and passed with a positive recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Livermore. Mr. Allison, you here to speak to the Public Works commentary?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. We did have a discussion, comments, and the trailer. obviously, things like the traffic cones and the signs are, are used hard, out in all kinds of weather. They get run over, they get damaged, they need to be replaced periodically. That's true for any kind of outdoor construction. And I'll defer to Mr. Kaluga. He had a good question. You were waiting for the answer on that one.
I was. Thank you, Mr. Allison. Mr. Livermore,
I got the answer.
you know what I'm gonna ask, right? How does a new
Yep.
trailer 7,000 miles on?
Yeah, so it is a brand new trailer. The 7,000 miles is 7,000 JVW. So it's the weight of the trailer. It's what we can haul with that. That was a typo.
Oh, it is not 7,000 miles, it's 7,000.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
So it's 7,000 is the gross weight that the trailer can cover.
Correct.
All right, thank you very much.
So that was the main question of the discussion. Other than that, it's replacement.
Thank you, Mr. Allison and Mr. Pelisi. Are there any comments or questions from the members of the council? Mr. Livermore, I know this isn't a very large item, I don't think by any means, but nonetheless, I would applaud you for reaching out to our ARPA consultant just to be safe. That's why they're there. I would encourage you to keep doing that for anything you're doing with ARPA and other members of the administration that are touching ARPA funds. That's what they're there for. There's a lot of good guidance that they can offer. I've talked with them a number of times regarding procurement procedures and what have you. So I'm glad to see that. So thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
No other comments or questions? Mr. Lubin on the vote, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Neely,
Yes,
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Item 10, resolution awarding the aggregate bids for the city of Williamsport. Is there a motion and a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Livermore, I'll turn it over to you again, sir.
Good evening again. So what you have before you is a resolution awarding the aggregate bids for the city of Williamsport for the 2022 summer. We do this every year. So our new vendor, there's two vendors we got, is Hanson Aggregate from Pennsylvania, Motorsville, and New Enterprise Stone and Lime Company in Lewisburg. After doing a little bit of looking around research from last year, it looks to be around the $2 a ton increase across the board for the materials for the 2022 season. This went through Public Works on Tuesday and it passed with a positive recommendation. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Livermore. This one's Public Works, right?
Right, this is an annual occurrence. It's our purchase for basically our defense system. So, and the one question we had was the cost increase for this year. Everything's gone up, and so this has as well.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. Any other comments or questions for the members of this meeting?
so it looks like we've got about 6,300 tons worth of material, right? Is that accurate still?
6,300 tons, was that correct?
Yeah, I'm just, so we're looking at the increase of about, $1,200, something like that, percent.
Yeah,
I should have pulled it up,
I'm struggling to hear a little bit.
but that's okay. I'm just, there are some things that $2 a ton seems, yeah, a little odd. In some cases, that's better than 20% increase, but in most cases, it's more like.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, and that and it depends on the material. That's where we're going to get our anti-skid and our 2A sub base. The obviously now the 2A sub base is $16.75 a ton. Last year was $14.70. So it seems to be across the board was the $2 hike for the probably fuel that's a delivery, that's a delivered cost.
That's substantial, you know, in one of it's substantial numbers. We still need the aggregate, I'm not arguing with that, I was just curious to know what the impact was. Thank you, Mr. Lubin.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing seeing none, Mr. Lubin with the vote, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Lizzie,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Item 11, resolution to amend, thank you, Mr. Livermore, have a good evening, I hope you feel better. Moving to item 11, resolution to amend resolution 9281, authorizing the purchase agreement with Blick Fire Equipment. Is there a motion and a second?
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
it's amending your resolution 925.
Okay.
That number that was on the actual resolution, so.
Okay. Resolution to amend resolution 9251. Correct me if I'm right. Thank you. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Assistant Chief Lucas, good evening, sir.
Good evening, President Yoder, members of council. What you have before you is just a resolution to amend the resolution 9251 on the price of the tower truck from 1.6 million to 1.7 for a total of 3.3 million instead of 3.2 million to add the pump and tank on the truck.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. This was reviewed in finance.
Yes, it was vote that much to fair, but we discussed this at some length during the budgeting process, because that was when we all came to the realization that we were going to need this additional feature on the trucks. So unless anyone did something felt a last minute projection or finance committee, see any reason to stand in the way of something we all agreed was a necessary component. Before this is away.
Thank you, Ms. Mealy. Are there any other comments or questions from the finance committee or council? Hearing seeing none, Mr. Lubin on the motion, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Lindsay,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Assistant Chief Lucas. Move to item 12, resolution to amend the contract between the city and CEDA Council of Governments. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Skip, good evening, sir. I will turn the floor over to you.
Good evening, everybody. I'll go over my script. Good evening, Council President Yoder and members of council. First of all, I'd like to introduce to all of council the newest member of the team in economic development, Jermaine Drummond, as the Assistant Director of Community and Economic Development. She's here with me tonight at the table. She comes to us from the YWCA. She has familiarity with some of the HUD issues that we're dealing with, and she has done some grant writing in other roles, and I think she's going to be a very valuable asset. I'm sure she's going to discuss anything with any of you at any time. So, Renee, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
Just excited to jump in and learn some new things and work with all of them.
Thank you. We're excited to work with you and welcome.
Thank you.
The Department of Community and Economic Development is requesting approval of a resolution to amend the contract with CEDA for consulting services to complete the substantial amendment and the ITIS activities to implement the approved closeout and reallocation of CDBG funds necessary to provide the funding for the purchase of the new fire apparatus that you discussed prior to this. This became necessary with the resignation of 2 staff members that had put the project together. This is time critical, and CEDA has the expertise to do this along with the new office staff. The cost for this service is $1,950. to be paid with CDBG administration funds. The contract was reviewed by the solicitors, and this resolution was approved or forwarded with a positive recommendation from the finance committee. On behalf of the answer questions.
Thank you, Skip. This was the finance review.
I was supposed to review finance and for the council with a positive recommendation. As we all know, that $1,150 includes the basically the paperwork elements of pulling together the $700,000 from fire budgets for from the portion of purchase of the fire vehicles that we just discussed. And frankly, seems like relatively good value. The community development block grant company reporting tasks are not likely, and if well, I suppose there's perhaps more easily calculate this cost. My guess is that we were paying it in salaries rather than some. This is probably looking at something close to this number. So, yeah. So all that said, for the light comes with cost of application.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Are there any other comments or questions from other members of the finance council? Hearing seeing none, Mr. Lubin on the motion, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Skip.
Thank you.
We'll go to item 15, collect certificates for appurtenance from HARB, and then we'll jump back up to item 6. Item 1 is 932 West 3rd Street. It's a property renovation plan, which was withdrawn from the demo for Mirabito Properties. And then item 2, 126 East 3rd Street is a roof and building repairs for Carl Kraus. To clarify, that's not a HARB property. There's no objections, but it holds historic features, so it's just an informational piece. Is there a motion and a second for the certificates of appropriateness? So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions related to these certificates? Okay, hearing and seeing none, Mr. Lubin on the motion, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes. Motion passes 6-0. We'll move back up to item 6, resolution authorizing an MOU between the city of Williamsport and Williamsport Waves swim team. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Good evening, Mayor Slaughter.
Good evening, President Yoder, members of council and administration. What you have before you is a resolution authorizing agreement memorandum of understanding between the city of Williamsport and the Williamsport Waves swim team. This would be the MOU that we've used for a number of years. We did make a few upgrades to it this year, even since Tuesday. One item that we had, one that was there in place on Tuesday, dealt with number 8, which was the insurance coverage. For our solicitor, we added in there that the wage will provide liability insurance for all of their members with a minimum general liability coverage of $1 million. And then like the discussion on finance on Tuesday, we added in number 10, which is the membership fee to join the Williamsport Waves swim team is $55 per member. $10 of every $55 membership fee will go to the city. And so it was the finance committee, we had discussion on that. We wanted to see that memorialized in the agreement. We added that in there. We just had some discussion around sort of the historical agreement between the Waves and the city. And it used to be part of our recreation department, and at some point along the way, it came out from underneath our recreation department and went through this MOU format. The other item we discussed was the swim team only membership, number 9. So each Waves The swim team member will have the option to purchase one of 3 levels of membership to the pool, to Memorial Pool, which would be the season family pass, the season student pass, and the swim team only membership. The swim team only membership is $10 that they will make as part of the 50 contribution as part of that $55 membership fee, which only allows them to utilize the pool during the swim team practice and meets. This was reviewed in finance and forwarded to the provided council with no recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor Slaughter. This was reviewed in finance, was you?
Yes, it was reviewed in finance, and the city obviously is long history with the ways to both as a city team. And the only point that was raised was that I knew in prior agreements, there had been a financial contribution from Williams, and I wasn't certain understood in that. There was nothing within the MOU that detailed the financial contribution, so I asked if there was a continuing financial contribution there, so it was. So we asked that it be included in the agreement, if they believe that's the case. Otherwise, obviously, we're happy with swinging that are and solid relationship. I move forward with your recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Mealy. Any other comments or questions from other members of the council? Hearing seeing none, Mr. Lubin on the motion, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Neuer,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Beard.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Move down to item 16, except for filing. We have the controller's report from February 28th, 2022 and March 31st, 2022. Finance committee meeting minutes from March 29th and April 12th, 2022, and the codes quarterly report. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions related to anything we are accepting the file? Here to see none, Mr. Lubin on the motion to accept for filing, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Neuer,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Beard.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Item 17, announcements. The next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be held on Thursday, June 9th, here at Trade Transit 2 on the 3rd floor. Upcoming meetings, Monday, June 6th at 12 p.m. is the Planning Commission. Tuesday, June 7th, 11:30 a.m. is Public Safety, 1 p.m. Finance Committee, 2:30 p.m. Public Works, 4 p.m. Transit Oversight. Wednesday, June 8th at 9 a.m. our Economic Revitalization Committee is going to now meet on Wednesdays moving forward. At 3:30 p.m. is our O&E Pension Board, and Thursday, June 9th is our City Council meeting. Item 18, comments. Are there any comments from members of the City Council? Mr. Biden.
A comment that I would like to make, I'd like to read something so it is in the record. On Sunday, May 22nd, 2022, Thad Stephen Mackey passed away peacefully asleep in his home that his great-grandfather had built. Thad was born on August 15, 1965, and was a 1983 graduate of Williamsport High School. As an IUP graduate of history and journalism, he was passionate about local history and the preservation of Williamsport, writing 2 historical books about the area, Williamsport and Williamsport's Millionaire's Row. He was a great supporter of locally owned businesses and well known within the community. Thad found a story within every brick of the city, history and culture down every street, adventures, and something to celebrate every day, and leaves behind a legacy as rich as the history he loved. Thad served on the board of Wildwood Cemetery, the Brandon Park Commission, and helped with fundraising and donations for the Alzheimer's Association and the Tabor Museum for many years. In a long list of achievements, his love for his children remains his greatest contribution. The reason why I read that tonight is because he was somebody that most everybody in this room knew and had some kind of a relationship with. He was a great contributor to the city of Williamsport. He actually has his portrait with his one daughter painted on the side of the bullfrog. So I would love for us all to just take a moment to remember the contribution that he made
to the city of Williamsport and how much he adored this, the city, as we all
Said Mr. Meyer, he served the city for a long time and in a number of ways, and we're fortunate to have people like him that serve, and it takes somebody very passionate to do any type of service like that in the city, and it's a shame when they go and they go too soon. Condolences to his family. We're thinking of them with heavy hearts right now. So thank you, Mr. Meyer. Any other comments from Mr. Council? We just wish everybody a happy and safe Memorial Day as well. A good long holiday. Please be safe and please be respectful of your neighbors, but have a good time. Any comments from the administration this evening? Are there any comments from members of the public? Any comments from the news media? Mr. Bartley, address for the record, and you've got 3 minutes.
Good evening, members of council. Todd Bartley, Williamsport.com. My address is on record and rights no requests with the city. I come to you tonight to discuss the dugout at Brandon Park, which was left in disrepair after a fire that happened more than a year ago. Mayor Slaughter, on behalf of this body, deferred the repair of that dugout to CTE students at Williamsport Area High School and a grant they obtained. My question would be was council aware before that happened that was going to happen? And then is it council's position to defer other needed repairs in the city to the CTE students at Williamsport Area School District, the high school, and grants that they're writing and applying for as opposed to the city? Glad the mayor's here tonight. Since Mayor Slaughter failed to have city employees repair a city dugout at a ball field, and City Hall remains condemned at this reading this evening, his immediate resignation, and I mean by the close of the meeting tonight, is required. History requires it. In closing, Mayor Slaughter and Assistant Police Chief both have remained silent since I appeared before you last on the topic of the 2018 Williamsport Area High School baseball team trip to Myrtle Beach and the assault that occurred on that trip. John Doe 1's family is still waiting on a return phone call from the mayor and the administration. In closing, I'm sure all the citizens of Williamsport would like to know, since all the effort's gone into reopening the disrepaired pool, if it's going to open on time and on budget. I await the mayor's response on that and council as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martley. Somebody else out there from the news media. We'll move to adjournment. Second.
So
Second.